Welcome to Steeped in Wellness, brought to you by Matcha.com. Here we spill the tea on wellness trends, personal growth, and the latest health news. Now, here are your hosts, licensed dietitian Diana Weil and medical journalist Laura Hodgebateris.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Steeped in Wellness.
This week we are joined by Kait Stephens, who is the founder and CEO of Brij, an AI-powered platform that helps consumer brands bridge the gap between offline retail and online engagement. With a background in finance and marketing from Georgetown and an MBA from Harvard Business School, she's built Brij into a leading tool used by over 150 brands to connect with customers beyond the point of sale. Kait is also the host of the Omnichannel Marketer podcast, where she speaks with founders and operators about building seamless cross-channel experiences. As a mom of two, she's passionate about redefining what balance looks like for modern entrepreneurs, blending leadership, family, and well-being while advocating for more sustainable ways to grow both business and people. Welcome, Kait.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, so just reading your bio, you're busy. You are a busy... You're busy. I'm tired for you.
Yeah, as soon as we wanted to know, do you sleep? How do you sleep?
Yeah.
Well, when I meet people, they're like, "Oh, you're in it." So to use that, I do sleep. I aim to go to bed at 11 every night. It ends up being closer to 12. So I'm, not getting the full 8 hours, but I'm close enough.
Yeah, so we're also being joined by my youngest son, Archer, today. Very on topic. Yeah, he knew that we were going to be talking about, work and life balance. So he decided that now was a really good time to want to eat his food.
Well, Laura, I love that you're doing this because it was very much a part of my journey. I had many Zoom calls where I was feeding my babies on those calls. I even had this setup where I could, had a pillow with the babies so I could breastfeed and type with two hands. So a handless situation. So I could, type or, be on Zoom calls without needing to hold them directly. So I had a whole setup.
You need to tell me more about this setup because that's my thing is I've been trying to do so much stuff with one hand lately, or I'll be working on Slack on my phone and I feel like I'm starting to get carpal tunnel on my...
Totally. It's this flat feeder. I have to remember the brand, and then I would put a pillow rolled up underneath their head, so it was kind of like a wedge. It was wedged on my breast, so that I could feed in a hands-free way.
It might be the pillow called My Breast Friend or something.
Yep, it's My Breast Friend. That's exactly.
It's the one that it straps around your back.
Yep, that's exactly.
Yes.
I'm it's not the Boppy, but what is the other brand? It's My Breast Friend.
There we go.
Exactly.
So it's worth it because I've been getting advertisements and I'm do I?
Oh yeah, it's worth it. It's actually I think less expensive than the Boppy, and it's a very quick Amazon purchase. So recommend.
Amazing. Can you just go into how you got to be where you are, some background for people listening on you're a mom, you're a businesswoman. How did you get here?
Yeah. So I started my career after undergrad in finance, found myself in an investing role. So, most recently I was at PIMCO. I was investing in omnichannel future of retail. And what I loved about investing is that you got to see, a 100-foot view of a lot of different things. But I really felt myself itching, especially in this, area of offline to online. I knew that I was interested in starting a company or several. My dad was a serial founder. I felt honestly, I was just a little bit nervous to take the plunge. And so was very excited about this general retail space, thought there was an opportunity to build a business there, but I didn't exactly know what business I wanted to build. Ended up going back to Harvard Business School with the sole purpose of figuring out what I was doing and starting a company. So I had to be super intentional at school because business school is this really interesting experience where you already have work experience, but there's really interesting people to meet and you can get pulled in 1,000 different directions. And so having blinders on, what was important to me was really important so that I wasn't getting caught up in the FOMO of what's important to other people. And so, yeah, what that looked like was I was really laser focused on I'm going to start a business. I'm going to learn how to start a business. So I was taking all the entrepreneurial classes, but then also just networking with others who were interested in doing a similar thing. And I ended up taking this class called Startup Bootcamp, which was over January break of my first year. And I met my co-founder, Zach, there. And so he's an engineer with his background in engineering from Carnegie Mellon. And we are super, super different. So we started, chatting and working together while we were at school. And, decided that it was a fit. Ended up starting something different while we were at school, which helped us stumble onto the pain point that we're focused on now at Brij, which is when a brand sells through wholesale. So think like Target, Walmart, Amazon, they lose that end relationship with the consumer. Turns out it's a multi-trillion-dollar problem that has really been the status quo for forever. So we discovered this problem, and I was like, wow, this doesn't make any sense. And then graduated in 2020 in COVID, which really ended up being an accelerant for a couple of different trends that we are already seeing in the market. One was e-commerce adoption. So it forced brands to go online and now know the power of owning customer data. I'm sure all of you have shopped online. It is a wonderful personalized experience. But the reality is that you engage with brands across multiple different channels. So kind of created this dynamic where brands know the power of data. They've set up online stores, Shopify kind of being the key technological enabler there, as well as, Amazon as more of this marketplace model. The second key kind of consumer behavior shift was a QR code adoption. So consumers were forced to scan QR codes in a COVID, won't touch anything world. And so it really became this ubiquitous consumer behavior. Everyone knows how to scan a QR code, including my mom. No one's going to be like, oh, I don't know how to scan a QR code anymore.
QR codes were dead until COVID came along, and it resuscitated them.
Yeah. And so as we thought about this pain point, the QR code became a key kind of distribution point or touch point from the offline world that could, be a mechanism that we utilized. So graduated in 2020 and launched Brij to bridge the offline and online for brands and focus first and foremost on first-party data capture, i.e. allowing a brand to have a direct relationship with the consumer. So a couple of examples of what that looks like on the topic of, baby products. Newton Baby is a customer of ours. They're a, popular breathable mattress. The vast majority of their sales are through Amazon, and then other retail channels. So Newton Baby also has other products outside of just their mattresses that they want to sell us. But, even though you as a consumer have bought a Newton Baby mattress, they actually don't know you at all if you shopped it from Amazon, if you shopped it from retail. And so what Brij powers is warranty registration. So, and then you can also, view other products from Newton Baby. We tie all that data back to their platform. And so that helps them sell more to you as a consumer because they can own that direct relationship. So that's one example of where Brij shows up in the world. So much life happened after that. That was about 5 years ago now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking how old are your daughters? You have 2 daughters, right?
Yeah, I have 2 daughters. My daughters are 3.5 and 1.5.
Nice and close in age, right?
Honestly, it's fun. They're besties, which is amazing. They also fight a lot, but they're also besties. There's quite a long personal journey that was happening simultaneously. While I was at business school, I actually did a modern fertility test. I went into business school with a partner. I was actually married going into school, which isn't necessarily always the case, but knew that I was delaying family planning for purposes of I was going back to business school. I knew I wanted to start my own company. I did a modern fertility test just to check up on my fertility health, and ended up finding out that I had a low AMH, which is an indicator of your egg quantity, which led me down this very long infertility journey where I then went to a fertility doctor. I did a retrieval against kind of my OB's advice, which kind of is a whole nother discussion in its own right. And then found out that I got 0 embryos. So went through a IVF cycle, got 0 embryos, which I actually found out in like January of 2020, which was like right in line with, or February of 2020, which is like right in line with like massive COVID, basically the world shutting down. And so I didn't actually fully appreciate what that meant at the time, but I ended up like having a meeting with my doctor, and then them being like, oh, you need to do like IVF as aggressively and as quickly as possible. So like a very long IVF journey later, including 5 rounds of retrievals, like 4 failed transfers, 2 miscarriages. I now have 2 very healthy babies that I'm like very, very thankful for. But it was a long, very, very dark journey for me that luckily I could like say I'm on the other side of now, but like it's really, really hard.
I can say from the male side, from experience, Kate, my wife and I were going through our own IVF journey, and we were doing it in 2020. And the heartbreaking thing for me as a husband, I couldn't go into the appointments with her because everything was so locked down for COVID. And for us, it ended up happening that we ended up not having children. But you're describing that journey, and we've talked about fertility a lot on this podcast before, and it is a very, very difficult thing. So I'm glad to hear it turned out well for you.
Yeah, it was really dark, and at a time when like early stage of my business like was also really dark. That like early stages of starting your own company is like you're getting 1,000 no's for every one yes. So, and like basically everything feels like you're running uphill. So I would say it was like a pretty dark moment, despite it having positive outcomes in on both sides. It definitely wasn't like a pretty journey in the beginning.
Did you experience any guilt, through having this really long process of having so much of your life dedicated towards your work? Like, did you feel like that was impacting your IVF journey and your fertility journey?
It's a really great question. Almost the opposite, I think, in a way. I felt really proud of myself, and like I was like, oh my God, if I had not like been so proactive about this IVF journey, I could be in a really bad situation. So I actually feel like really happy that I was so active and anything proactive. Again, I didn't go into detail here, but my OB at the time was like, "Oh, this isn't a big deal. Like, don't worry about like low AMH. A lot of people can have low AMH." And I was just like, I don't know. I have this information. If I don't act on it, and like it ends up being a challenge down the road, I will never forgive myself. And so I like took that. That was really important to me. My like initial plan was that I wasn't even going to think about having kids until I was a couple years out of business school. When served with this new information that it was going to be really hard for me, it was like the number one priority immediately, because there's so much about like kind of child planning and fertility that is fully out of your control, frankly, in a way like far even beyond that of like the career journey, which like some pieces feel out of control, but you have more control over.
For sure, right? The fertility journey was number one priority. How did you manage to balance, right, doing this really difficult fertility journey and then also kind of really accelerating at an incredible pace career-wise? Like, did you ever feel like there were times where you were just like, oh my God, like I'm canceling meetings left and right, I'm like not feeling well, or like you had a ton of morning sickness and that was causing issues?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I have definitely developed a strong sense of resilience, which I think I've always been like a tough person, but that I felt like, you know, tested in both of these areas of my life, like built up more resilience. And then it was a little bit of like compartmentalizing. Work for me has always been a really good distraction from, frankly, the all consuming nature of kind of fertility and or like family planning. I feel really lucky in that I like really enjoy what I do, which I very much kind of go into these zones. And so where I'm like pretty fully like in it. And then I, try to do a similar thing in my personal life as well. So that allows me to be more present. But that was absolutely many moments of a lot of stress, I would say.
I'm sorry. Can I just take a second? Sorry, Laura. You
a
just
second, Diana. Okay,
sorry,
so
just give me 1 second.
it's okay. So, Diana, I'm gonna start crying because I know about Diana's journey. So, I'm gonna keep it together for all of us. But Diana's currently going through that process, which, as you know, Kate, is very challenging and definitely struck on some heartstrings. She already has a beautiful son named Elia, which thank the Lord that he's here with us. But she just went through her second transition, and it was her one embryo that was her little girl. And unfortunately, she didn't stick. So that's been a really tough process that she's been going through the last couple of weeks. It's been a tough process just as her best friend to see her go through that. When we've kind of been through this motherhood journey together of having our sons close in age. And then we were kind of thinking, the second round, they were also going to be really close in age. And, she's my son Archer, who I was just feeding on camera before, his godmother. So, it's just kind of a tough thing, right? So she just probably needs a second. But I do think it's something that it will be cathartic for her to address and talk about.
Yeah. I can totally resonate with that really painful journey. And then simultaneously, I have a very close friend who just found out that she lost an early pregnancy. So it's really hard. It brings me back to that, really, it's dark. You have this excitement. So
right. So what helped for you when you had your losses? Did you experience any losses in between your first and second daughter?
No, I didn't actually. My losses were both before. So I had 4 failed transfers before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she's back.
Yeah, sorry to trigger that.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. I mean, one, I actually think that crying is incredibly stress relieving, and actually, I noticed you apologize for crying. I've also had people apologize to me for making me cry, but I actually think that you shouldn't, one, first of all, apologize for crying, or people will be oh, I'm afraid to bring up something because it makes you cry. About a couple of different losses. I lost my dad actually or a couple of days after I graduated from college. And, obviously I've had some losses in my fertility journey, but you're thinking about it whether or not someone, talks to you about it. So I am of the mindset that one, crying is very natural, a normal way that people reduce stress or let out stress. Not everyone is a crier. I definitely am a crier. I can't even tell you, both in personal and professional. And then two, I would rather someone let them know that they're thinking about me than not say something. When it's something that you're thinking about a lot, it's actually this concept of the elephant in the room. It's you're thinking about it, but just directly addressing it. So anyway, that's my thoughts there.
No, I love that. Thank you. I actually feel I cry more when people are nice to me. When someone is says something
Note
that's nice.
Note to self, be meaner to Diana in podcast.
Be mean. Be really mean to me right now. Sorry. Anyways, okay, let's actually talk about the apology, because Alara was saying that one of the things she wanted to ask you about was, especially as women, I think we apologize for being emotional.
Specifically millennial women. I think there's something about our generation where we are so apologetic in the work setting specifically. It's always, oh, sorry, I have to pick up my child early. Oh, sorry. And that's actually what caught my eye, Kate, was some of the content that you've been putting out on social media.
Yeah.
It really, really resonated with me, where it was I don't need to apologize for putting my family first.
Yep. Totally. Okay, so just for the guests and for a little bit of context, I, about 2 years ago, started creating content primarily for LinkedIn. It was with the goal of growing my business. It is actually the most effective marketing strategy for our business. The channel being LinkedIn is, I sell to brands, typically brand marketers. They spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, learning and connecting with their peers. So that's a really good channel. It's not different in strategy from kind of the way that, brands and influencers will build kind of their brand on TikTok and Instagram. So it's a very similar strategy. my content primarily started out almost exclusively business oriented. So it was like around omni-channel marketing, the future of retail, which is, where our business kind of plays and what I'm a knowledge expert on. What happened is like, I would occasionally discuss a few personal things like, National Infertility Day. I wrote a post about my fertility journey. But just like, I was coming into motherhood. So kind of like that journey, the breastfeeding. And when I posted this post, I got so many people reaching out to me and just being like, this resonates with me so much, like, please more. And so now my content is probably like half personal and half professional. And what's happened is that like people like resonate so much with this like shared experience of motherhood or wanting a career while also being a mother, that I've leaned more heavily into it because I have very strong opinions on this in the space. And so that's kind of the context. And, Lara, you're pointing to like I've done a lot of posts around kind of reframing the word sorry. And I think that as, just even female employees will apologize for, we use the word sorry too much. As females, one, just recognizing we overuse the word sorry and correcting ourselves. And so actually most of my team is female, not on purpose. It just like seems to be who I attract. And when they apologize to me, I'll be like, I don't think you needed to apologize there. Like let's just catch the fact that you used sorry there. And then as it relates to like parenthood and how that shows up in the workplace, yeah, apologizing. Sorry, I need to go pick up my kids. No, like just like I need to go pick up my kids. And then also, having on my calendar that this is my family time and, I'm going to be unavailable because I'm picking up my kids. And so really reframing parenthood not as as something that you need to apologize, but something that you need to, that you're communicating is part of what is important to you and your priority, and thus, dictates when you're available and when you're not. When I onboard a new employee, like one of the first things that I talk to them about is like my ways of working and when I'm available. And so that includes, I'm like, I typically get home around 5:45. I'm offline from 5:45 to 7:30 because I'm doing bath time and bedtime. And that's just like, I'm going to be unavailable. And that's just like expectation setting. So the sorry and reframing kind of parenthood is just like part of who you are, and not needing to have this like very thick line between like, okay, I'm at work versus I'm not, because for me it's like it's very overlapping, fluid, messy, often situation.
One of the things when I was looking at your Instagram, I think that this is a topic that you're talking about, but you had a video go viral and a lot of people were congratulating you for being a mom and having this incredible career. But then there were also some really negative comments. I have a question about how do you just handle sort of those negative comments on social media and general thoughts on that criticism that you face?
Yeah. So the post that you're referencing is I did like the 9 to 5, 5 to 9, like trend or whatever. And I had literally ridiculous comments, like including, this is the problem with America, and what about your husband? And like, you spend no time with your kids. At first the comments, I think like, first and foremost, like, if you're creating content that you're going to get like annoying people.
Trolls.
Like, doing trolls.
Trolls.
So trolls exist. The second
They're real.
They're real. The second is that I just tried to approach it with like re-leveling how ridiculous I felt they were without feeling like getting too emotionally charged about it. So notably, like one of my like comments back was, I'm wondering if you would have the same feedback if, a male posted this, which like honestly was a lot of it. It was like, and I even talked to some of my team about it. They're like, they would be like, if a guy got home at 5:30 and was doing bath time and bedtime, they'd be like, what a great dad. Here, they're like, you're a terrible mom. And so that, uh, I think that I just like kind of remained level headed. I think to me, of course I was like emotionally charged up about it, but there's also ridiculous people in the world. I think it is a reminder that while women have made so many advances, both men and women are sexist against women still, like very, very much so. And the expectations of for women are just like incredibly unfair, across society. Like there is like really this like you cannot win mentality put on by others. But what I ground myself in is that I don't give a shit what they think because like I know this is what one like makes me happy. Two is best for my girls, and is best for my family. And would I like to be able to like spend more time with my kids? Sure. I love how like some of the comments are just like, uh, what I do expect me to have a 20-hour work week. I wish I could be in a, financial position where I don't need to have a full-time job, but I'm building my business. It's a time in my career where I'm in it. It's a time in like my like personal life where I'm in it, but I prioritize like the time that is important to me so that I can make both work.
Okay, how do you kind of pepper in you time, like just time for yourself?
Yeah, do you have that? Does that exist for you?
Honestly, that is the piece that I've like made the biggest sacrifices on. I would say spending time with my daughters and work are kind of me time. I don't know if you can relate to this, but sometime after the weekend, like going to work feels incredibly relaxing. Um, but I did have Monday off, and my husband actually like had work, but we still had my nanny, and I was like, wow, this is a great day for me. I like went to a workout class. I like did some like life admin stuff. I got a facial. So I don't do it enough, and that's definitely the first thing that I sacrifice. For me, like because I have a finite amount of time, like with the kids, weekend and in the evenings, a lot of me time gets cut. I would say that being said, I also keep a really like strict schedule with our kids, and that creates a lot of flexibility as well. So both of my daughters go to bed at 7 p.m. There's a lot of time that exists between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. when I go to bed. So me time also happens then, including like, work dinners or personal dinners. I schedule them after my kids go to bed, and like when I can, because that like plays into like my personal time.
One of the best things that I've seen, my wife has an executive role and the hours are long, and she's often replying to emails, nights, weekends, things like that. She would get frustrated if she'd respond to something on a Sunday afternoon while I'm sitting on my butt watching football, and then the person responds immediately back to her. And then the best thing she said she saw was in somebody's email signature, something to the effect of, I'm not going to get exactly right, but it's something like, please note, I am responding to this email at a time that works for my schedule. Please do not feel obligated to respond back to me outside of your normal working hours. And I thought that was awesome and just so kind for somebody to have that in their email signature.
I do. I've seen that before too, and I love that.
I love that.
Kate, do you have any? I feel like when you're in it with your work and you're in it with your kids, what advice do you have for marriage? Like, how do you keeping your marriage alive?
Hi. That's a great question too. So we try to have dinner together almost every single night after we put the kids to bed. Again, I'm not home every single night for dinner, but when we can, that's been a really, helpful time for us to connect. And then, date nights, ideally once a month where we're just kind of getting out of the house. And, we just recently went to a Broadway play, spending that time just one-on-one. And then we also went on a vacation, just the two of us, this past summer, which was like felt extremely luxurious. And I felt like I was bored for the first time in my life in a way that I was like, I have so much time on my hands. What do I do? So I would say like that's probably an area where I'm not like 100% like the best right now, because work and like family are taking a little bit more of my time, and there's only so much time that goes into the day, but that's what we do right now. But I would say like could do better there.
Yeah, that's tricky. Do you feel like you have a hard time when you're not busy, just not doing anything? Like, I feel like at this, if I have a minute, I'm like, okay, I have to be productive 100% of my time. And I don't know what to do if I'm not being productive. And I also feel like there's something in like my self-worth is now tied to being productive. And there's like, that has to also be disconnected in some way, you know?
Yes, I heavily relate to that. I've called myself before an optimizer, where I am looking for like efficient use of every single minute and productivity of every single minute. I actually, wrote about going on vacation with my husband. I was like, wow, this is like really great. Like feeling bored inspired a lot of different ideas. Like having that space is actually really productive. And my husband commented on the post and he was like, I'm going to remember that the next time that you tell me to be productive when I'm sitting on the couch. So, which like felt just so real because that is exactly, I'm like always looking to be productive.
I do that with my husband too. And then I have to remind myself that I'm like, no, rest is good. It is okay for him to rest. But if he has 5 minutes, I'm like, why are you not doing something?
Kate, I want to go back to your point about LinkedIn and talking about the personal side of it, because so much is negative on social media, and we talked about trolls a moment ago, and the nastiness and political fighting, and on down the line. But the real good piece of social media is connection. It's connecting people, and I think for a lot of folks, especially LinkedIn, where it's so much more business focused and it's more quote unquote professional. And I've heard it called Facebook for adults and things like that. One of my podcast clients, actually, she has really grown her business, much like you, by putting personal stuff on LinkedIn. And obviously nothing inappropriate, but showing the person behind the brand, behind the company. Hey, I'm a real person. I'm struggling with these things too. Oh, wow, I can really relate to that. You really can build connections. So I applaud you for putting yourself out there so much personally on LinkedIn.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that's what I found as well. It's like allowed me to develop my own voice more. So I think there's something about if you're writing something and putting it out to the world, you're really thinking it through. So as a leader of a team, I've had to think through like a lot of different issues from hiring to firing to building culture. And so it helps me refine and define what I think about that, especially if I'm going to put it out to the world, which has had an unintended consequence of, better connecting me to my team. And then also better connecting me to future employees. So when we do put job descriptions out, we've had people who've been following us for a really long time and are excited to work for our company because they know like what we stand for already. Similar, because I feel like culture is one of those really difficult questions to like critically important thing. Like you think about you spend more time at work than you do with your family. The people that you spend time with, like the culture that that company evokes is critically important, but how do you actually like understand or know what it is or feel it? It's like one of those very difficult pieces. That's been a place where that's been really helpful. And then on the personal side, yeah, there's just so many shared experiences. It's like we just went to Disney World and we had this like situation where my daughter lost her autograph book and Disney exhibited what I would call unreasonable hospitality, which is like they went over and above to make sure like that my daughter was okay. They gave her like a free new autograph book and this like sparked conversation with other people who had had similar experiences or how that's relevant to like, I'm in the customer business. I'm in like marketing and customer experience. So, how we think about this. And I, shared that story at our team stand up because I was like, how can we Brij exhibit unreasonable hospitality to our customers? So I think you're touching on like John, just kind of like this shared human experience that is relevant to, both how we show up personally and professionally. And I think early in my career, I think in an effort to like appear professional that I like thought of those two things as really separate, like my work self and my personal self.
Mm-hmm.
But I now like think about them as like really like inextricably linked in a way that are like not two separate things and like ones that learn from each other.
Kate, you just in my mind, like compared to my season of life I'm in right now, you just feel so put together. Like everything, you're very structured in your approach. You're very good at putting everything in the calendar. How do you handle periods of burnout or feeling overwhelmed? Like, do you have a reset strategy?
So, first of all, if I showed you my home screen right now, you would see that I have like 30 open tabs and like 500 like screenshots on my desktop. So there is appearance and then there's reality. The other thing is like I also recognize that I like and appreciate organization, but I'm not good at setting it up myself. So that's something that I look for, I know when I'm hiring a team for like others as well. But to get back to the meat of your question on burnout, I think what one thing is making sure that I have pockets of my day that I am really getting joy from. And I've gone through the exercise before and also on the converse, like what does not bring me joy, like what is energy draining. And for me, these both occur at work and at home. And so when possible, I'm minimizing or eliminating as much of that energy draining motion as much as possible. At work, I'm in the position where I can like figure out what I enjoy doing and hire for what I do not enjoy doing to an extent. There's like a lot of shit that I have to do as CEO that is like not fun that I have to do, but that's something that I actively look to do. Um, the other piece, like on burnout, that, or just like, which I think is like very much related to parenthood in general. I've been asked the question, like, will I lose my drive when I become a parent? Or will I still be motivated? Because my like peer set of, women and people is like high achievers. So that's kind of like a baseline. So I've been asked the question, like, will I lose my motivation? And in my opinion, if you are a high achiever to begin with and then have a child, that does not take away your motivation. What it does do, though, is like help you rethink how your time is spent, because there is a much higher opportunity cost for spending time away from your kids. And so what I have sometimes seen is people, especially kind of like in the like early postpartum space where there's like a lot going on, hormones, life, season of life, conflate not wanting to go back to work or not wanting to work and not liking their job with like work in general, so for example, like very specifically, I had a friend who was like, I don't know if I want to go back to work. Well, at least that's what I thought. And then I just realized that I hated my job. And so what I have seen in my peer set and, feel as well is like when you like your job and you think that you are spending your time in a meaningful way, you're excited and motivated, whether or not you have kids. When you do have kids or something else that is important to you, the opportunity cost of that time just becomes that much more important. So that being said, like, I actually get a ton of energy from my job. And so while I am like extremely busy, I get a ton of energy from it. So in my situation, like I don't, like if I was a full-time caregiver, I don't have that I don't get enough energy, like that's like not enough me time, it's not enough work time
Oh,
personally.
I could never be a stay-at-home mom. Like, I'm the same way where I couldn't wait. I was like chomping at the bit to get back to work. Diana had to literally be like, stop looking at Slack, turn off your notifications, like be with your children, like focus on them. Because I find work to be very energizing because I love who I work with.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I find child rearing, I absolutely love my children. They're incredible, but it's very draining for me. So, personally, when I kind of feel overstimulated and there's a lot of mommy, mommy, mommy and touching, my tactics are I'll just take a hot shower, just like in the middle of the day, just take a hot shower, reset like that. We have a couple dogs, as you've probably heard barking on the podcast. So I'll just kind of be like, hey, I'm just going to take one of the dogs out for like 15, 20 minutes. I listen to my audiobook, kind of just almost disassociate, reset, come back, and I'm ready to roll. Those have kind of been my top tactics as of late, as someone who's really in it postpartum.
Yep. Shower for me is so luxurious, and especially especially in postpartum, I just remember like that time being like, wow, this, because also like postpartum when you're breastfeeding, like you don't kind of smell a little bit. And
Yeah, nobody talks about nursing
stinky.
BO. Yeah, you're just stinky. You're just stinky.
Oh yeah, you're
It's
stinky.
like,
Yeah, so a shower is like absolutely de-stressor, luxurious. I also, like, interestingly enough, like, have found writing very it's like writing on LinkedIn is really like journaling for me. It is like like it's reflection. So I've really loved that time. And just sometimes like mindless scrolling on your phone is within a box because it has its own negative implications as well if you spend too much time there. But like sometimes it's a nice release. Oh, and then finally, when you talk about kind of all of the stimulations, I definitely have like auditory overstimulation. So like when I'm feeling really exhausted after we put the kids to bed, like I would say like 7:15, 7:30 is like my peak like exhaustion and just like overstimulated. I just like want all sound off. I don't want the TV on. I don't want music on because I'm already like overstimulated from all of the kids basically. So I like quiet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The scrolling thing is funny to me because my wife, who has to deal with calls all day, when we're sitting on the couch at night watching TV or watching mindless YouTube or whatever it is, she's just scrolling her Instagram feed. And I'm like, are you even here? And she's like, I have had to people all day. I need this like mind candy, brain rot stuff to just reset.
Yeah.
Yeah, disassociate, I guess. So, in speaking of social media, I love when people share their families, and I find it so helpful to see people's families. But I also know that there can be that can come with a dark side, and I'm curious for you how you feel. Like, do you have any hard and fast rules when it comes to sharing your family on social media?
I have been very open with sharing my family on social media, including their names and their faces. I know that there are a lot of thoughts around not sharing faces as it relates to kind of like AI image recognition, not sharing names. What I don't share is like, direct location. So there's not some like super crazy creeper trolls. Primarily, my content like interweaves family, but is primarily professional. So I like nowhere near am near the kind of extent to which like content or family is needed as it relates to it being like a lifestyle blogger or content creator. So all that being said, it's a conversation that I've had a couple of times with my husband that I'm kind of just like, I'm an open book. This is like, it is what it is. Like there's a line on like safety. But outside of that, I've found that the more I share, the more I feel, John, to your point, like connection with people really across like multiple different dimensions. And so that's kind of been my philosophy there.
Do you ever get like a vulnerability hangover? Like if you share something like your fertility journey and you share that, at first it kind of feels good, but then there's this moment of like, I just shared that with a lot of people that I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. But then like I take a step beyond that and I see how many people that it like affects in such a positive way that I like totally get over the hangover or the ick. Yeah, using the infertility journey, for example, I've had random people who I've never like met in person message me or come up to me in person and be like, you shared your infertility journey. Like my husband and I are going through something similar. I just wanted to say thank you. That really helped us. Because there's something extremely isolating around infertility that just knowing someone else is going through or has been through something similar. And also like in a really challenging way. Because I think there's like all these dimensions of infertility where you're like, oh, well, you had infertility, but it was like not that bad. And so there's all these different angles there. And so the short answer is yes, absolutely. However, it has been so outweighed by just the help that it has done. And so, yeah, I think that like leading with vulnerability, I've found really opens others up to share things with you as well, which like invokes like deeper human connection. And I would say, Laura, you described me as kind of like put together. That has really been um, my kind of personality my entire life, actually almost to an extreme in that I was seen as unapproachable or like cold even, which is not actually my personality, but it is like a vibe I give off. And so actually my like vulnerability in sharing has really, I think, helped my not get that like cold impression or, people like intimidating has been another word used to describe me. So I think that like that's been a good offset to kind of maybe the vibe I bring.
Yeah, you're the sweetest, Kate. I mean, I think you're incredibly impressive, but I've never, I don't know, think of you as cold.
I think, yeah, it's helped, I guess. Maybe people who don't know me have like gotten that vibe, but it's helped being able to like share more about my like thoughts and feelings, I guess.
So I know that you mentioned that you have like an amazing team of like mostly female. Coincidentally, John's kind of like the only guy we work with routinely. Like Diana and I also have just a team of amazing women that we work with. A lot of them are younger. And something that we've dealt with in hiring, the younger generation, the Gen Zers compared to us millennials, is they seem to really prioritize their personal lives and like over their work. And so my question to you is kind of like, what do you think that they get right? And what do they get wrong compared to us millennials?
That's a good question.
It's like, I just remember interviewing some people and them just being like, you know what, I'll take the job, but like I need Monday and Friday off. Like I'm working remote or this and that. And I'm like, they are like demanding these things versus I was just like happy to get my foot in the door in my 20s, happy to have a job, eager, ready to do whatever. I was working holidays. I used to work in broadcast television. So like I was working, 6-7 days a week sometimes, like crazy overnight shifts. And now they seem a lot less flexible in that department. But I'm like, is it me or is it them?
That's because we came up in the age where there were no jobs.
That's a fair point.
Right? Like I couldn't even get a serving job, I remember, when I was like 18. Like there were no jobs available.
I remember sitting there at college graduation in 2002 where they're like, parents, don't think you threw away 4 years of tuition money. The jobs just aren't out there right now.
Yeah. Sorry, Kate, but I want to apologize. I want to hear Kate's...
Don't apologize, Diana.
I know. Sorry, I said sorry.
I have so many thoughts, including I wonder if that's going to shift now with kind of like AI taking early like new job entrants and but that was just like a thought. I have hired some of said Gen Z who like thinks they're God's gifts to Earth, and
yes.
some have definitely not worked out, including like someone who worked for me for like 2 weeks and thought that he was going to keep his company laptop as like his ownership. There's so many things. Gosh, I wish I could unpack a little bit more about like why this dynamic exists. I think that there's some element of like, yeah, we need to chill out a little bit as millennials. Mm-hmm. However, I do like appreciate our just general work ethic as a general generation. What I've seen in, I would say across the board, there's a challenge in like Gen Z in their kind of, it just like almost seems like privilege. Like they feel like it is their right to just have this job entirely on their terms. Generally. However, what I've seen is like there are stars that exist within that, and that's like what we look for in the hiring side. And so like first of all, like all of Gen Z are creators, which is its own interesting dynamic, but some of them are really like incredibly self-made, incredibly resourceful, and that's what we try to hire. So the short answer is, Laura, I don't have an answer for you. We have hired some crazy, ridiculous people who no longer work at this company. There's definitely a generational shift in how people like approach work. I think that there's something that we could all learn from, like I said, chilling out a little bit.
Rather than just saying it's only millennial versus Gen Z, do you think a piece of it too goes back to how everybody was raised? Were they raised from a position of privilege where they didn't have to need anything versus raised in a way that they had to scratch and claw to get what they want regardless of generation?
Like depending on their class that they grew up in terms of
I don't want to sound classist either, but I think you're onto something with that, Laura. Like, what you had growing up versus what you earned versus what was handed to you, I suppose.
I don't think that impacts it personally because I've seen it across the board personally, like in my hiring and firing experiences.
Sure. There could be parenting styles though, where, I mean, if you think about like kind of gentle parenting and the like concerns with like how gentle parenting could lead to soft kids. I'm like trying to think about like what is the profile of like a generation Gen Z-ish's parenting. Also, I mean, I don't know, this is really on topic, but TikTok, like social media is just like the other qualities of Gen Z are less like, it's like there's like their work style, but like they're also less social. They're spending more time, like they all had devices at like 10.
Yeah.
They were they Snapchat like 100 times a day, TikTok, and that is like their social, which is primarily through a device. There's like that's like a whole stream of thought about like the anxious generation. If you've read that book about, how our kids will be, there's going to be like a whiplash from that, because we don't want our kids to be obsessed with social media at 6 years old. So they're not going to have phones, or at least like that's likely the reaction to what didn't work there.
Have you seen there's that company that came out called Tin Can? That's like,
No, I haven't.
reinventing. Yeah, so they're reinventing, the home phone, having like the
That's
I
hilarious.
love that.
just like the Rolodex phone, and it comes with like a little piece of paper where it's like write down your friend's name and their number, and it's like the phone rings and you don't know who's calling you, and it teaches kids skills of like, you have to talk on the phone, and at the same time someone else could pick up like the other phone line and be listening to conversation. I don't know if you guys like remember growing up with those.
Oh my gosh. I think you mean rotary, not Rolodex. Your younger millennial is showing.
Oh, yeah. See, there we go. Sorry. I'm exposing myself.
I'm the elder millennial. I remember the rotary phone.
Kait, what do you hope you give your girls in terms of work ethic? Like, what do you hope that they grow up feeling about? Do you want them to be female founders? Do you want them to work? Yeah. Is there anything that you want them to grow up to be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. One, I want them to be able to be happy. And so to figure out what it is in their life that gives them gratification and happiness. So that, I would say, is my number one goal. I think that like establishing work ethic as an important part of like their upbringing is one. Like I want them to be hard workers so that they appreciate what they have and what they're able to earn. I think that I've personally seen something that is given to you is not nearly as satisfying as something that you earn. So I've seen that in my own career. So would love that like kind of work ethic and gratification experience. Would I want them to be founders? If that's what makes them happy, sure. So just like helping them figure out what makes them, gosh, I think like really happy is the that piece there to have, a gratifying and satisfying life.
Happy and well fed. I don't know about you, but it's like I have an obsession with like, feeding and regular bathroom schedules. It's like, that's it. It's just happiness, going to the bathroom, eating food.
Correct, because the alternative is potentially hangry. And, both myself and both of my girls absolutely are hangry if they are not well fed. So
I feel that way too. Okay, I have one more question before we wrap up. For someone who is feeling lost in their career and it hasn't found something that is satisfying for them, do you have any advice for those people who might be struggling with what to do?
Yeah.
Who coincidentally are also have a young family. So they're just kind of like, it's that like, do I work? Like, how do I launch a career while also having young children?
One thing that I like to ask people across, like whenever I'm, chatting with people about careers or even, when I'm hiring for our own company, I ask, what is your superpower? And so what I'm looking for there is like, what are you naturally great at? Because that would be the first thing is like, ideally you want to be doing something from a career perspective that is amplifying what you enjoy and what you are best at. There's almost like that like concentric circle there. The second is like what just naturally interests you. So for example, I was giving someone career advice, so what naturally interests you as well as like where is the market going? So i.e. there's going to be a lot of opportunity there to be an expert. So I was giving someone career advice recently that's, really unhappy in their job. And I was like, well, do you have any interest in kind of the development in AI? Like there's so much to learn. And she was like, I do. So I was like, becoming an expert in something that like you're interested in, but that also like is a growing portion of that like pie is a really interesting, like, if anyone wants to like upskill themselves, like that's probably the best place to do so right now in terms of just like wealth of opportunities. And so I think it's an exercise in self-reflection and thinking about what is there in kind of like the scope of your day-to-day right now that brings you joy? How can you match that to a career? And then like, is there a piece that also aligns with like where the market is growing so that you can be there's just positioning yourself with ample opportunity on the like piece of, and you have a family. I think that we are in a world now where all of those things kind of happen simultaneously. If you want a fully remote job, those exist. Like if you want to work from home, that is possible. If you want to work in the office, that is also possible. The like democratization of work and access to work is like insane now in this like post-COVID world in a great way. Like our team is global. That's okay. It allows you to access all this different talent literally across the world. And so I think that is net positive to parents because, depending on the stage they are in life, maybe when you do have, like when your kids are a little bit older and they're in school all the time, then you do want to go to an office. But when you're in this like young age, that's like really not realistic. And so I think that all of those opportunities are available to parents, even young parents now, because you can dictate kind of the terms on which that you're willing to work. So my like high level piece of feedback that I give, that I just like feel strongly about, that I would give as both advice and that I, just in general feel strongly about, is that I think that there's a lot of dialogue that tells, women, parents, that they cannot do these things, that they can't recreate their career. And so thus it just instills this fear that like leads often sometimes women to just like step back or like lean out, to use Sheryl Sandberg's terminology there. And that, I found like when you just give it a try and you set the boundaries that work for you in your life, you realize, oh wait, I can do this. Like I can have like this career that I'm excited about and, and a family. I just think that there's a lot of really unfair dialogue that, listen, it's hard. It is messy, but there's no reason why you can't do both. And I actually think that I've learned so much from being a parent that makes me a better like employee, a better leader. Because man, like the like multitasking, negotiation skills. So that is my parting thought.
So, I mean, Kait, now I have to know, what is your superpower?
I am really good at connecting with people. So when I figure out who I want to be connected with, I'm almost 1 or 2 degrees and I can get to that person. So that is I'm a connector.
Connector, I like that. So normally we ask these 2 questions at the end of every podcast. Annie, do you want to let Kait know the first one? We haven't prepped you on them, so just kind of off the cuff, what comes to mind?
So, Kait, what is something like a life lesson or a motto that you have learned from someone else important to you, or, someone else, that's something that someone has taught you?
So my dad used to always say it's the journey, not the destination, which I really resonate with, because it's not like one milestone. It's not like the big promotion at work or like the fundraise or the, one, like the child, whatever it is. It's like, it's the journey of like doing these things together. Obviously, those are big, important milestones, but kind of enjoying the path that you're on really resonates with me.
I love that. The time in between the seams is what I like to call it. That's
where
the magic happens. What about anything come to mind recently that maybe is a lesson you've had to learn the hard way?
Man, I think
besides hiring Gen Zers who wanted to take their laptops home,
So, I mean, I think people management is extremely difficult. I think that everyone wants to be liked, and I think that okay, there's a couple lessons here. One is like being focused, like as a leader, sometimes you have to make really hard decisions, and like you should always be kind, You have to like make difficult decisions, and you should do so quickly, because that is what is best for the business and for the individuals. And the second is, and I've learned this the hard way a couple of times, is that people like want to feel heard and understood. And so the delivery of the same message, like language, and kind of making sure people feel heard and understand in delivering that message will completely change the perception of that which is received. I've learned that the hard way a couple of times, where it's like not been delivered properly or been too quick, or just a Slack message that really should have been a phone call. And so I think like really just kind of understanding like the human element of like the information that someone's receiving, and making sure that you're making sure that they receive it the right way.
Yeah, that's a big, I think what you said about people need to feel heard and understood, and that can take a conversation from a 10 to a 2.
Yep.
Well, Kait, this has been fantastic. You are an inspiration. I love all of your messages. I'm going to try to say less, which is difficult. But where can people find you? And if they are interested in your company, where can they get more information?
So follow me on LinkedIn, at Kait Margraf Stephens. And then more information about our company at Brij, Brij.it.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Sip, savor, and live well with new episodes of Steeped in Wellness every Wednesday. Follow our show for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. Leave your questions and comments below. Find us on Instagram at Steeped in Wellness Podcast, or for more, click on matcha.com.